Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're talking about a really big shift in artificial intelligence. This is the moment when Agentic AI, this idea of AI that can do things on its own, stopped being a theory and started becoming a reality. And it's reshaping everything as we speak.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll nail down what Agentic AI actually is. Then we'll look at the platforms and, the massive investments that are making it all possible. After that, we'll see it in action. And finally, we'll get into what this all means for us, for people.
All right, first things first, let's get grounded in the core idea. What in the world are we actually talking about when we say Agentic AI? So the AI you're probably used to, it just waits for you to type something in, right? It's reactive. Agentic AI is completely different. You give it a goal, and it figures out the steps to get there all by itself. Think of it like this. It's the difference between an assistant who can fetch a file for you and an autonomous project manager who can plan and launch an entire marketing campaign from scratch. And here's the crucial point, the whole reason we're talking about this today. This is not a lab experiment anymore. It's not a pilot program. This technology has literally crossed the chasm from being a cool idea to being deployed in real businesses on serious platforms right now. So you might be wondering, how did this happen so fast? Well, it's all about the new infrastructure. Think of it like industrial-grade scaffolding being built at lightning speed, giving these agents a safe and powerful place to work at a massive scale. I mean, just take a look at Amazon's new AgentCore. This is a perfect example of what's needed for serious, complex work. We're talking about secure, isolated environments where whole teams of AI agents can plan, work together, and even critique each other's work for hours at a time. This is heavy-duty stuff. And you know what? It's not just Amazon. Teradata is doing something really similar with its AgentBuilder. It gives these agents secure access to the mountains of data that are usually locked away inside a company. This has been a huge missing piece of the puzzle, solving that old data gravity problem. Where it's just easier to bring the tools to the data than the other way around? Now let's move on to the fuel that's powering this whole explosion. The absolutely staggering amount of money and energy being poured into AI infrastructure. To really get your head around the scale of the bet that's being placed on this future, just look at this number, $100 billion. That's a capital injection so massive, it signals a fundamental shift in the entire tech industry. And that number, it represents a huge partnership between two of the biggest names in the game, NVIDIA and OpenAI. Their goal is to build the next generation platform for this technology, deploying at least 10 gigawatts of computing power. That's the megawatts part of this whole supercycle. It's just a mind-boggling amount of power. But it's important to know there's a debate here. Some analysts are looking at this and getting a little nervous. They're calling it vendor financing. Basically, that's when a company, like a chip maker, invests a ton of money in a customer, like an AI lab, betting that the customer will then use that money to buy its chips. It's a very tight loop that could get risky if the money doesn't start rolling in soon. And this chart illustrates the larger challenge perfectly. Research from Bain shows an $800 billion annual gap between the investment needed to meet AI demand and what they project the revenue will be by 2030. It just highlights the enormous scale of the build-out that's still ahead of us. Okay, so we've seen the platforms and we've followed the money, but what does this actually mean in the real world? How are these agents being put to work to solve actual problems? For developers, the change is just profound. Before, agents were basically coding blind. They just write a bunch of code and hope for the best. But now they can use tools like Chrome DevTools to essentially watch the app breathe. They can see the code in action, find the bugs, and check that their fixes actually worked, just like a human engineer would. It's a total game changer. And this impact is spreading out everywhere. It's so widespread that if you just look at a few key sectors, retail, manufacturing, finance, even something like pensions, you see Agentic AI starting to play a major role in every single one. It's a ripple effect that's touching every part of our economy. And these aren't just abstract ideas. We're talking about real money. In retail alone, Morgan Stanley thinks that using agentic automation for things like supply chains and inventory could save companies around $6 billion by 2026. That is a tangible bottom line number. And get this, it's coming straight to your pocket. Pretty soon, picking the right AI agent for a task on your phone, whether it's from Samsung or Google or a startup like Perplexity, could be as normal as deciding which app to open. It's moving from a big enterprise tool to a choice you make every day.
Okay, finally. With any change this big, we have to ask the big questions. We have to talk about the human impact, the effect this is going to have on jobs, on policy, and on our role in a world that's getting more and more automated.
And I mean, the leaders in this field are the ones sounding the alarm. Dario Amodei, he's the CEO of Anthropic, is being very open about this. He's acknowledging that this transition is going to create huge challenges, especially for white-collar jobs, the kind of work that involves processing complex information. You can see this tension playing out in real time in policy debates, like the one around H-1B visas for skilled workers. The conflict is really clear. Do you put in policies to try and protect jobs at home, or do you do everything you can to attract the best talent from around the world to stay competitive? It's a tough balancing act. So for businesses, the takeaway here is pretty straightforward. You can't just plug in a new tool and call it a day. Adapting to this requires building a whole new foundation. You've got to modernize your platforms, make data accessible but secure, and completely rethink how humans and these new AI agents are going to work together. Which leaves us with a really critical question to think about. As these powerful, autonomous systems start taking on more and more responsibility, defining the future role of human judgment, of human strategy and oversight becomes more important than ever. What does it even mean to lead when your team is made of code?